Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 22nd and final regular season, postseason, whatever the heck you want to call it, Duke Basketball Report podcast. I am your host, Jason Evans. I'm in a great mood. I am joined by my usual colleagues, Donald Wine and Samuel Klein. Donald, say hi.
Hey.
Sam, where are you, Sam, right now?
The streak continues. I am at the Kansas City airport. So I think I'm in Missouri. I'm pretty sure I'm in Missouri. So the streak continues.
Well, we're all very excited. It's Tuesday morning, and last night was a night to remember. That's the easiest way to say it. The Duke Blue Devils are national champions, fifth time under Mike Krzyzewski, fifth time in the school's history. 68-63, we defeat the Wisconsin Badgers. We've decided that we're going to keep this podcast to no more than about 3 or 4 hours in length. We could easily talk for about 10 or 12 hours about the incredible, unbelievable game that just happened last night. But we're going to try and hold our thoughts down a little bit. I'm going to let Sam, you were at the game. Just give me really quick, what it was like to be in there in Indianapolis in the stadium when the final seconds ticked off and the Blue Devils had collected their fifth national title.
Yeah, so I was there last night at Cameron Midwest, I think we can call it now. And
I like it.
For those, we have Cameron North in New York City, and I think that Lucas Oil now is officially Cameron Midwest. Now that we've collected 2 national championships there in the last few years. The stadium is enormous. We know that it's a football stadium, and I'm sure you could tell on TV it was mostly Wisconsin fans. There were a surprising number of Kentucky fans at the game. Those people must just really love college basketball. But the Duke
were they wearing blue or wearing red?
They were wearing blue, but there were just a lot of them. Like I saw a lot of Kentucky fans. I saw a family that had 2 young children, like under 10 years old, wearing "I Still Hate Leitner" t-shirts at the game. So yeah, that was the thing apparently. But at the end of the game, the fans who were allowed to be the loudest were the Duke fans. The Wisconsin fans were very passionate and true to form, unfailingly nice. I really enjoyed being there among the Wisconsin fans. I was sitting with one buddy who I went to Duke with, and we were sitting in a section full of Wisconsin fans. They were into the game the whole time, and then at the end, a few of them shook our hands, patted us on the back, while I was standing there crying on my friend's shoulder. So the Wisconsin fans are great. They were very gracious in defeat. But what's most important is that Duke won the game. The celebration was really fun. My friends and I were up in the corner of the stadium, so we weren't that close to it. You guys got a much better view on television than I did. But after the game, we went down, sort of stood in the middle of the arena, kind of behind where they had the stage podium thing set up for where the players received the trophy. We got to see them cutting down the nets and all that stuff, and you get to see everybody milling around. It's amazing how many people are on the court after the national championship game, none of whom are fans of the team. But the atmosphere was incredible. After the game, my friends and I went to the team hotel, which was a short walk away, and we waited for the players to come back. I guess the press conferences and the media availability in the locker rooms took a while. We were there for some time, but it was a lot of fun to see the guys walk out. A lot of the Duke basketball alumni and some of the media people like Jason Williams and Jay Billis, they were all filing into the team hotel as well, and you can tell that all the media guys like Jay Billis who are supposed to be these unbiased reporters about all of college basketball. You can tell that when Duke wins a national championship, they sort of let their guard down a little bit, and they get to celebrate as part of the family. One of my friends and I ran into Jason Williams yesterday early when we arrived in Indianapolis. I flew in yesterday morning, and we ran into Jason Williams, who was finishing doing a quick ESPN SportsCenter spot. And I happened to be wearing my Jason Williams jersey at the game yesterday, which was cool. But when he came over to talk to us for a few seconds and told us that, this game's going to be really fun. I really, really hope we pull it out tonight. I think we can. It was like it was a fan just like any of us. So being at Lucas Oil was incredible. The last time we won, I was still in school, so I was actually on campus for the last national championship, and my friends who were with me last night were asking me which was which experience was better? And I said, well, they're both national championships. They're different, but they're both so much fun. So a lot of fun at Lucas Oil Stadium last night. I want to know what it looked like on TV, guys. So
yeah, hey, so the way we're going to break this down a little bit is we're going to try and sort of take it in different chunks, and let's start with the Grayson Allen chunk. Donald, tell me what you thought about probably if I said that two freshmen would lead Duke to the national title and it wouldn't be Justice Winslow or Jaleel Okafor, you probably would have thought I was insane. Donald, talk about Grayson Allen for a second.
Oh, man. Grayson Allen had the game of a lifetime last night. 16 huge points. He played without fear. I was always talking to my friends last night about back on January 30th when we had just lost to Notre Dame. We get the Rashid Suleiman news, and I think on this podcast, me and you, Jason, were saying Grayson Allen's going to have to grow up pretty quickly, but we understand if that's not going to happen. But it happened, and we kind of saw the culmination of that last night. And I mean, the kid was just everywhere. He was, great on offense. There was a stat that SportsCenter tweeted out after the game, and he said when he was on the court, our team was plus 13 point differential, 1.47 points per game, 4 out of 7 from 3 points, and 0 turnovers. When he wasn't on the court, we had a minus 8 point differential, 0.86 points per possession. We did not hit a three, and we had all 5 of our turnovers. So the guy was the difference. And everything that in the second half, when we started to fuel a little run, it was Grayson Allen leading the way. And who would have thought that at the beginning of the season, in the middle of the season, or even last night? He was the best. I felt like he was the best player on the floor for most of the game until Tyus took over. So this was excellent. I'm so happy for him. I'm happy for everybody who probably wears the Duke shirt. I'm wearing one this morning. I know you guys are too. But Grayson Allen was the spark plug last night.
Let me chime in about Grayson, and then I'll let Sam talk about him for a moment. 8 points in 71 seconds. He scored 8 points in 71 seconds. Duke was down 9. And give me just, guys, I know I was texting with a bunch of friends, emailing with a bunch of other friends. All the texts, all the emails were defeatist. We were down 9 and everyone thought we had lost. I thought, if you'd asked me at that point, is Duke going to come back and get back in this game, or is Duke going to lose by 15? I would have hung my head and said, I think we're about to lose by 15 points to a team that boy, in the first half, for most of the first half, I was like, how is this close? How are they in it with us? Because I thought we were way, way better than them. But we were down 9, and then Grayson scored 8 points in 71 seconds. It's the stuff of legend. It's the stuff of history. It goes alongside stuff like Mike Dunleavy's raining 3-pointers down on Arizona to win the national title back in 2001. Unbelievable. And don't forget, during that time, during that 71 magical seconds, he also got an amazing steal from Travion Jackson, who's their point guard and a great ball handler. Grayson wanted it. He wanted it so much. I had an email from a friend after the game who said, how many people, freshmen or otherwise, want the ball when your team's down 9 in a title game? So many players run away from the ball, or they pause when they catch it. They're terrified because they know I'm one mistake away from dooming us to a loss. They freeze. Grayson Allen didn't do any of those things. He sought the ball. He hit a 3-pointer, and then he took it hard to the hole. And that's what Duke did all night long. But to me, Grayson's courage, to say it was unexpected isn't enough. It was shocking, and it carried us through the darkest, worst part of where that game was headed. We were headed to a loss. You can't convince me otherwise. We were going to lose the game until Grayson Allen said, no. Okay, Sam, your turn.
I actually pointed out to the friend that I was sitting with when we went down 9, I said, we've been down by more than this before in a game this year. You just watch and see what happens. I did not think that Grayson Allen was going to be the one that was going to ignite that run. I was really impressed with the way that he came into the game and was just immediately in control. he didn't make any moves that were, that seemed out of sync. He did it, and he had the steal, which was his aggressiveness that didn't turn into, over exuberance. The beginning of the game, we saw Okafor take an immediate offensive foul into Frank Kaminsky, and I thought, man, he might be a little too excited for this game, and he might not be playing in control. I didn't foresee Grayson Allen being the person to come in and be the calm but also overwhelming presence that he was going to be. So that I think is the biggest takeaway, the most obvious takeaway from this game. The thing that we're gonna read about so much was Grayson Allen taking over. So, but that he played in such control was such an impressive performance to me.
Okay, so we've had our Grayson Allen love fest. It's time for the Tyus Jones love fest. Tyus Jones, most outstanding player of the Final Four. He also won most outstanding player of the South region, and all of us agreed, we've said it on the podcast, he didn't deserve to win it. Well, he deserved to win most outstanding player of the Final Four. There's no question about that. I have other friends have nicknamed him, but I'm saying it here. His name is no longer Tyus Jones. He is Tyus Stones. The kid is nothing but clutch. The announcers were talking about it. They kept on saying, Tyus Jones is the guy who takes over late. Well, Tyus Jones took over late. Donald, give me some Tyus Jones love, baby.
So if you recall back in December when we played Wisconsin, Tyus Stones, he had 22 points and was really the X factor and the MVP of that game. So yesterday when I'm deciding what jerseys I'm going to wear, I'm deciding between a white Duke jersey with the number 1 on it, or do I go with my black Duke jersey, which is the exact same jersey that we wore against Wisconsin and happens to be number 5. I went with a number 5 because I thought Tyus will not let me down, and number 5 is the number of championships we're shooting for. And thank you, Tyus, for not letting me down. That was outstanding in the second half. He had 19 points in the second half. And basically when Grayson had caught us back up, Tyus said, cool, I'll take us the rest of the way. And between the two of them, it was just amazing. Tyus, those 2 huge threes, one to take the lead and one to really, I guess, end up being the final dagger with just under a minute left. With the and that face that he made running down the court, giving off the 3 sign, is probably going to be one of the more iconic photos from this championship run. It was excellent. He played amazing, and he just like Grayson, he didn't show any fear down the stretch. He wanted the ball, and winners want the ball. And we've been kind of looking for this Tyus for most of the tournament. Like I said, he's played very well, but he hasn't played Tyus Stones level. And last night, Tyus Stones came back, and he came back at just the right time. I'm so proud of him for stepping up like that in the second half and really helping us get over the hump and getting to victory.
Tyus only had 1 assist. And I think, a lot of credit to Wisconsin. We haven't talked enough. I thought Wisconsin had a very, very good defensive plan. They played a smart ball game. They're a very good team. And they figured out a way to keep Tyus from sort of slicing and dicing to get other guys easy looks. It also matters that we missed a lot of layups. I said to some friends at one point last night, I said, Duke is attempting to set a record for most layups missed in a national championship victory. And I think we succeeded. We missed something like 8 or 9, at least layups, shots that I don't expect us to make every shot, but we make a hell of a lot of them. And I think Tyus lost some assists that way, but he only had 1 assist, and he found other ways to help us out, basically by saying, okay, if I can't be the assist man, I'm going to be the scoring man. And what a special performance he put on. Sam, what did it look like to you from the rafters of Lucas Oil Stadium?
The shot that Tyus Jones hit against Virginia to ice the game in January, when I think that we were unsure sort of where the team was going. We had lost Suleiman. We had lost a few games. That shot made everybody believe that Tyus Jones was able to, take the game into his hands late and dictate what was going to happen. And we saw that again last night. That shot that Donald mentioned, the dagger, I think, with like a minute and a half left in the game, was exactly what you would expect to happen from him. That he's very calm. He's just going to he's going to go up to the line and he's going to smash that 3-pointer. And we saw that poise from him. That's all I've been talking about all year is the poise of the freshman, and he's been the king of that. I was reading I think it was the CBS post-game article about sort of the end of the game and then the celebration. I think it was from Matt Norlander, and he talked about Tyus Jones having a moment with Jahlil Okafor after the game and them embracing and talking about, how special it was that they were doing this together. And then also Tyus Jones celebrating with Quinn Cook, who was, the mentor and the leader of the team. Quinn, I said, that was the role that Quinn played. Quinn was able to be, partially I think Quinn was able to be such a good mentor and a good leader because he had a kid like Tyus Jones, who's a freshman, who was able to soak up all that leadership and all that assistance and turn it into something great on the court. And we saw that. I could feel that in the stadium last night, and it made me feel so good. And then after the game, I don't want to dive too deep into this particular topic, but after the game, one of my friends turned to me while Tyus Jones was cutting the net and said, "He's coming back next year, right?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, definitely." So, really, really impressed with Tyus Jones.
Time to move. Let's move away from the two huge obvious stars and talk about some of the other guys. And I'll let you guys sort of take your pick who you want to chat about. I'm going to lead off. I want to talk about our D, and that means talking about Emil Jefferson and Matt Jones, who statistically, if you looked at the box score, didn't have the kind of game where people would necessarily notice. But in the post-game press conference, first of all, I think it's quite telling that Coach K brought Emil to the post-game press conference. K brought 4 players: Grayson Allen, Tyus Jones, of course, Quinn Cook, the senior, of course, and then the 4th guy he picked was Emil Jefferson. And I'm sure the media was sort of hoping that they would get a chance to ask questions to Jahlil Okafor, or perhaps Justice Winslow. But Coach K knew that Emil Jefferson was the guy that needed to be there. And Coach K could not stop talking about how great Matt and Emil's defense was. The game of basketball is played at both ends of the floor. Cameron's really excited. I'm talking about defense, and Cameron loves defense. Can you guys hear Cameron barking?
Oh, yeah.
Slapping the floor, you right?
He is. He's slapping the floor. The game of basketball is played on both ends of the floor. And most people only pay attention to the offensive end. They only really notice defense when it's awful and you give up a layup or something, or when you do something flashy like a steal or a block shot or something like that. Cameron, I know you love defense, but calm down. Denying your man, pushing him out of position. Sorry, this is really funny. There's a squirrel. It could be a badger. Maybe it's a badger. Cameron, stop it. Calm down. Oh, my goodness.
Cameron, you celebrate as much as you want, dude.
Yeah.
It's okay. I made a lot louder and more regular screams last night at the end of the game.
Okay. I think he won't stop barking at this squirrel. It's just a squirrel, Cameron. So I was going to say, forcing the other team to take a bad shot, grabbing a rebound to eliminate a second chance point, like I said, pushing your man out of position. These are not the kind of things that show up in the ESPN highlights. They aren't the kind of things that get noticed, but they are the kind of things that win championships. Duke had not allowed any team to score more than 1 point per possession until last night, and Wisconsin scored 1.03 points per possession. But Wisconsin is the most efficient offensive team in the land. They're unbelievably good at being efficient and scoring points per possession. They scored 1.2 points per possession against Arizona and Kentucky, who are the number 1 and number 2, or number 1 and number 3 defensive teams in the country. Duke held them way down from what Wisconsin usually does. You win with defense, and that's what Duke did. And Emil was amazing on Frank Kaminsky. Absolutely destroyed him. Kaminsky's production when Emil was in the game was almost nothing. And Sam Decker, what Matt Jones did to Sam Decker was sick. It was shades of what Billy King did to Mark Macon back in the early 90s. I know you guys aren't necessarily old enough to necessarily remember that, but one of the legendary defensive performances of all time in Duke history was Billy King on a guy from Temple named Mark Macon. Mark Macon was the best scorer in the country, and Billy King Billy King ruined Mark Macon's career. Mark Macon was a freshman, and what Billy King did to him, Mark Macon didn't recover for 3 seasons. Sam Decker may have the same thing of what Matt Jones did to him last night. Sam Decker was hitting 50% of his threes in the tournament. 50%. Last night he was 0 for 6, and he had like 3 air balls, I think. What Matt Jones did, what Emil Jefferson did, and by the way, Grayson Allen I thought was awesome on defense as well. So that's it. Cameron's done barking. I'm done talking about the defense. Donald, give me your player that you know other than the big stars that you want to talk about.
So I'm going to talk about Quinn Cook. He didn't have a great game last night, but at least on the stats. I think what he was great at and making sure our team never quit and was always in it. And like I think Sam was talking about the leadership that he's exhibited all year, and he really had to bring that out when it seemed like we were, on the verge of letting the game get away from us, middle of the second half. And, being able to step back and let freshmen take over is something that's very hard to do for anyone who is not a freshman, and especially for senior. Quinn Cook was able to do that all year. He's able to mentor these freshmen and get them to the point where in a national championship game, they can step up and carry the team. And in the second half, not a freshman, all freshmen scored. They're the only people who scored in the second half. But Quinn was out there, making sure that these guys were locked in all the way to the final, buzzer. And I want to, I know if you guys saw the video of Quinn embracing Nolan Smith after the game, and there's a picture that's circulating. It's awesome. It moved me to tears. I was literally weeping watching this video and looking at this photo because of how hard that Quinn has worked all, over these 4 years, how hard he worked last night, even though the stats really don't show that, similar to, Matt Jones and Emil Jefferson on defense. But this championship is going to be his, and he's going to be able to, live as a national champion for the rest of his life. That is unquestionably the greatest gift that, Duke could give Quinn. And I know Quinn is leaving a legacy that will never be tarnished at Duke. And for that, we're very thankful. And so I just wanted to, point that out for Quinn Cook.
Sam, it's your turn. What have we not talked about that you want to talk about?
Well, to add on to Donald's point about Quinn and Nolan Smith, I ran into Nolan Smith yesterday as I was leaving the stadium and got to talk to him for like 20 seconds. And he had that space that you saw in those pictures when he was with Cook on the floor, that sort of proud father look. He was still glowing and looking like that on his way out of the stadium last night. Was in the best mood and looked as happy as you'd ever see that kid look. And Nolan Smith is one of the happiest people that you'll ever meet. That's saying something about him. I did want to point out that early in the game, Justice Winslow was really setting the tone for us. He made a lot of big plays, and he ended up in foul trouble, and I think that's probably what limited him towards the end of the game. I think he was a little frustrated by the foul trouble, but he really set the tone early. He made a few nice plays on both ends of the floor that I really liked. I also, like Jason, I was impressed with the defense. I mentioned in the preview the other day that one of the interesting things to watch would be between Matt Jones and Justice Winslow, who guards Decker and who guards Hayes. And I'm surprised that Matt Jones got the assignment on Sam Decker and that he did as well as he did. So yeah, Jason, it's good that we give him that credit. But other than that, I think that we saw it all. I think that it's amazing that we won this game. We looked good down the stretch, and that we didn't have DeLillo before playing his best. It speaks to how well the team. Go ahead.
I was going to say really quick. I want to mention about Jazilla. He was not at his best in this game. He wasn't at his best in the entire NCAA tournament. It's fine. Not his best is still a pretty damn good player, and he's drawing attention and forcing the other team to do things they don't want to do, even when he's not his best. But when the entire season was on the line, when his college career was on the line, because I think we all know Jazilla is going number 1 or number 2 in the draft. Jahlil Okafor had 2 monster, I will not be denied buckets inside. And in between those two, with less than 3 minutes to go in the game, and in between those two buckets, with 4 fouls, he played his best defense of the night, forcing Kaminsky into a shot that didn't hit the rim, and then forcing Kaminsky to put up a desperation shot clock violation when Wisconsin absolutely desperately must have a basket at that point. They had to get a good look. They had to get a bucket. And I think when that shot clock violation happened, and then especially when Okafor had the putback rebound basket on the very next play, the ball game was over. And Jahlil Okafor, who had a terrible game for himself and got in foul trouble, which he's avoided pretty much the entire season, when it came down to it, he had 2 huge plays. Congrats, Jahlil. When we really needed you, you were there for us. So thanks, buddy.
And we talked a lot, I think, earlier in the season. We'd preview a team and say, well, if they can get Okafor in foul trouble, then they're going to be okay. And it never happened. I don't think – did Jahlil Okafor ever foul out of a game this year? He might have.
He did not. No, he did not.
Yeah. So there was never a game where Okafor's foul trouble was directly related to us either losing or almost losing to a team that maybe we shouldn't have. And at some point, we kind of just stopped talking about it. It was like he doesn't get in foul trouble. Some cynics might say that's because he doesn't play that aggressive of a defense, although, as you point out, he did last night. Last night was the first time that we had to deal with Okafor in foul trouble. What do we do? We're playing a team that has all these enormous guys that are able to score inside. And like you said, we weathered that storm. He was aggressive at the end. He knew what he had to do, and I was a little frustrated, I think, early in the game, or earlier, not right at the beginning necessarily. There were a few times where Okafor got the ball and tried to get too creative. It was like, okay, I have this playbook of 20 different post moves, and I got to make sure I show them all off. And he made a few spin moves where it was like, why is he going over there? Why is he moving away from the basket just to shoot a harder shot? He should be going at Kaminsky. He should be going at Decker or whoever it is that's guarding him. And get those guys to play defense on their heels a little more, because he wasn't doing that, and maybe that was due to the charge that he threw at the beginning of the game. So yeah, he sort of had an interesting game because he really didn't look good, but then at the end he figured it out only for a few moments that were so crucial.
All right, guys, let's go away from the players just for a moment and talk about the coaches. Obviously, I don't know how we've gone this long and not mentioned that Coach K now has 5 national titles. He has moved past Adolph Rupp. He is in second place all time behind John Wooden, the Wizard of Westwood, John Wooden only has 2 titles without Sam Gilbert buying players for him. So I'm not sure whether you count John Wooden's 10 as 2 and 8 or 10 if you're not going to count the rampant cheating and buying of players that was happening at UCLA. But hey, that's for another podcast in the future. But Coach K now, second all-time, 5 national titles. I'm not sure if you guys have noticed it, but ESPN on their Sports Nation page has a poll. Where does Mike Krzyzewski rank among the best coaches of all time? And he is currently ranking number 1. 55% of people in the poll think that he is the greatest college basketball coach in history. There are only a handful of states, Sports Nation breaks down everything by state. There are only a handful of states where he's not picked number 1. The states that don't think Coach K is the greatest coach of all time are Alaska, Maine, Idaho. I don't know why those, but the other 4 are California, which is where John Wooden is from. Everyone in California you'd think is a big Wooden fan, although it's very close right now. Kansas, I think those Kansas folks are a little maybe they're sympathetic to UNC or something like that. Wisconsin, which just lost, and they probably think Bo Ryan's the best coach of all time. And Connecticut. They hate us in Connecticut. But even in those states, Coach K is generally considered the second greatest coach of all time. Donald, reflect for me for a moment on Coach K and 5 national titles and the fact that he won it. This is the first time he's won one basically with nothing but freshmen.
It's amazing. In my opinion, he's the greatest of all time. If you told me that John Wooden's the greatest of all time, I would not have that debate with you. But that would be one where we'd have to walk away from the table agreeing to disagree. In my opinion, Coach K is the greatest of all time. I think he was before that. I think this only solidifies it. And if you guys recall, in the span of less than a year, Coach K has won a national championship and a world championship with USA basketball. So in a span of a year, there has been a lot of good fortune coming down on Coach K, and I hope it continues because it's an honor to see. It's an honor to witness. It's an honor to be a part of all of it and just watching him coach. Last night, it was a really good battle between him and Bo Ryan. I don't think either coach was really out-coached last night. It was just, players executing in the end. And, there was a lot of good plays that we had that, we were talking about the missed layups. We had a lot of great plays drawn up that led to some open looks that just didn't go down. But that was, you could see each coach is really going at it and using everything in the arsenal. And Coach K thrives in those situations. He's been in 9 national championship games. He's won 5 of them now. So he knows about being in these situations. Bo Ryan, on the other side, has been to 4 Division II national championships, and this was his first D1 national championship. So he's also experienced with this sort of thing, but maybe not on this stage. Coach K thrives on the stage, and you could see it last night, and you could see after it was all said and done how much this team means to him. I don't think I've ever seen him celebrate after the final horn as much as he did last night. Of course, he did it for, it was probably about 10 seconds, and then he went to go gracefully shake, the hand of the Wisconsin team. But he was riled up for this game, and he was riled up for this championship, and it was great to see because he deserves to be, to celebrate this. This was a great win for him, and I'm so happy that he's our coach.
Sam, your turn. Talk to me about Coach K.
I think that there are enormous contrasts between the team that won in 2010 and the team that won in 2015. And you guys mentioned, or Jason mentioned, that the 2015 team was really heavy on freshmen. 2010, I think that Coach K did an amazing job of taking that team and saying, we have guys who are limited in the flexibility of their game. We're going to craft the style around a very specific set of offensive and defensive principles. And we're going to kind of play really old school type of basketball. This year, he allowed himself to be more creative. We talked a lot this year about how many times he changed the defense. And, for so many years it was, well, Coach K is only going to play the aggressive man-to-man defense, and he doesn't want to play the zone. He doesn't want to play the press. He doesn't want to do any of these other things. This year, we basically saw him empty the notebook on the defensive schemes because he said, well, I have all these guys who are really athletic. I have Justice Winslow as my best athlete on the team. We haven't had a kid who was that athletic and that big and able to handle that kind of defense in such a long time. And he let it go. He set defensive schemes that his players could handle, didn't make them too challenging, and it's cool to see that he can win in different styles. It's not like we talk about some coaches having a very specific style that they like to play. Roy Williams needs to have a really fast point guard to win a national championship. Coach K doesn't need to have any specific type of player. I don't think that the 2015 team had a Kyle Singler, and I don't think that the 2010 team had anything like Tyus Jones. So the contrast in styles, I think, is the most interesting to me. He's won it in different ways, in different eras. He's adapted to the game, and there was a period, I think, before the 2010 championship where people said, "Oh, I think the game's passing him by. He's not embracing the way that the elite coaches are using young talent nowadays." And we just saw him do that. We saw him win with a team that, maybe Duke fans don't want to hear this comparison, but a team that John Calipari could have probably won with. Guiding those very talented freshmen and letting them live up to the best of their own abilities and not trying to force them into roles. We give Calipari, I think, a little bit of grief about the way that he handles his program and a number of things, but you can't deny that he's had a lot of success getting freshmen to reach their potential very quickly, in the college game, and Krzyzewski has clearly watched a little bit of that and has figured out how to adapt that sort of into the grander scheme of the way that he likes to coach. So I think that that's the biggest takeaway here. I think that he's probably the greatest coach of all time, just because of the longevity that he's had of having teams who were playing at such a high level and winning championships. I think that statistic is that it was 25 years from his first championship to his most recent one, and that no one's even come close to that large of a span. So that's what's so impressive to me about him. It's not those valleys that he's had maybe in the last couple of years, but that the peaks have come, and that they've come in such, in such a long time frame and in such different ways.
It's interesting you brought up Calipari. There are some folks out there who are saying today that it's very, very possible that Duke is going to have more one-and-done players this year than Kentucky, which is it's not something that you would necessarily have expected from Duke in the past. It's something that Coach K, I guess, has adapted to a little bit. So I want to move on from Coach K very briefly. I don't want us to dwell too much on this, but Bo Ryan, the Wisconsin coach, had some very, very controversial things to say post-game. The first thing he said was he very much blamed the game on the refs. He talked about how his players were being held and bodied and pushed, and that the refs were allowing Duke to do things on defense that they usually don't allow, and that that Wisconsin was getting called for ticky-tack fouls that he didn't think they deserved. For a guy who Bo Ryan has a reputation as the kind of guy who says the right thing, who is usually very, very gracious. He just went a little bit bonkers. I'm really surprised at his attitude post game, his inability to be gracious in defeat. It is worth noting that Wisconsin committed 15 total fouls. That's not an absurd number by any stretch of the imagination. It's just 2 more than their season average. It's a very, very reasonable number of fouls, and when you consider the way Duke was taking the ball to the hole, which, as we said in our pregame analysis, as I harped on a few days ago, that's what Duke does. That's what Duke has figured out how to succeed at. They take the ball to the hole and they get fouled. So Wisconsin committed 15 total fouls. Duke committed 13. We had our 2 best players, Winslow and Okafor, in major foul trouble all game long. And, we really only shot more free throws than Wisconsin because we were aggressive, taking the ball to the hole. I was very surprised to hear Bo Ryan say those things. My official friend, my friend who I've spoken about several times, who is an NCAA official, said that the game was not well done. He thought the refs were really bad, but he thought there were missed calls on both sides. And he thought there were a few more bad missed calls that favored Wisconsin than Duke. He and a few other friends commented to me that the only way Frank Kaminsky was going to pick up a foul was if he literally wrapped Jahlil Okafor's arms up and held them down, which he did at one point, and picked up a foul because Kaminsky could do anything he wanted other than that and not get a foul. But the bottom line, as far as my official friend was concerned, was that there's no way that the referees determine the outcome. There's no way that the referees seem to be biased or seem to be favoring one team over the other. And then the other thing Bo Ryan said was, and I can't believe he said this, he said, "We don't take rent-a-player kids," clearly implying that Jahlil Okafor, Justice Winslow, and perhaps also Tyus Jones are one-year rentals, that they aren't real basketball players who are committed to the school, that they are only there to play basketball. It was a really, really low blow. Both Jay Billis and Seth Greenberg on ESPN roasted him for it. You cannot tell me if Bo Ryan had a chance to recruit Jahlil Okafor that Bo Ryan wouldn't take him in a heartbeat. It's classic sour grapes. Donald, I know you watched the post-game press conference from Bo Ryan. You can tell I'm getting angry. I'm gonna stop for a second and let you take it. I think what Bo Ryan did was despicable, and I've lowered my opinion of him tremendously. Donald, what were your feelings?
Yeah, well, I mean, I watched the entire press conference several times. They've been replaying that every like 15 minutes, it seems, on SportsCenter. Bo Ryan was obviously upset at the foul calls or the lack of them during the game. But he has to remember that in the first half, Wisconsin only had 2 fouls called on them. We had 7. And then the second half, we're doing the same things, and they started grabbing a little bit more. They started being a little bit chippier on the defensive end, and that's where they were getting a lot of their foul calls. We were attacking the basket. Grayson Allen was attacking the basket, and he was getting, and they were getting the right calls. They've been harping on a couple of missed calls down the stretch, but in the end, those calls didn't cost us the game, or cost them the game, I should say. So I'm not sure where his ire for the refs came. I do think that it was poorly called on both sides. There were a lot of missed calls, but as you said, in the end, they kind of equaled out and didn't really. I didn't think they really favored one team over the other, so I wasn't too worried about that. It was more missed shots on both teams that you probably could take away, or missed chances to take momentum away or steal momentum away that really they're going to need to reflect on. As for the rent-a-player comment that he said, I was kind of taken aback by that, because if you think about it, he's really talking about the wrong team when he's talking about we're not a program of rent-a-players, because Duke isn't either. We expect that maybe 2 or 3 of our freshmen may be moving on to the NBA draft, but they haven't done that yet. So until they haven't, they're still Duke players, and they're not one-and-done players until they say they're done. And we've only had 4 one-and-done players under Coach K ever. So what is it? Maggette, Lul Deng, Kyrie. Actually, I'm sorry, 5. Kyrie, Austin Rivers, and Jabari Parker. So you can't say that we're a program of rent-a-players. He probably should have used that comment on Saturday night, because Kentucky is the team that you think about when you think about one-and-done players coming in. The story today is that they may have 7 players going to the NBA draft. I believe they only have 14 on their team. So half their players might be leaving after 1 or 2 years. So I think that was, very out of left field. I don't know why he decided that we were the program that he had to target as the one and done face of college basketball, because we really aren't. And I think that he just was very upset at his loss. I think he may regret his comments this morning, or maybe he doesn't. But he probably should, because if he's going to make these kind of comments, he should probably direct them at the right team, and Duke is not the team to be directing it.
I think that the thing that he's maybe not looking at is that Coach K is at the top of the recruiting game, and there's a few other coaches who are in that range. Calipari is one of them. And the state of college basketball in 2015 is that when you recruit the best players, they're going to leave, because that's just what the culture is now. The culture wasn't like that in the 90s. The players weren't so worried about maximizing their potential, and there weren't as many concerns about career-ending injuries, and it wasn't maybe as common for the players to leave early. It's just what it is now. Coach K accepts that he's gonna recruit these kids. He's gonna recruit the best kids that he can. He's gonna recruit the kids that he knows will be able to qualify and that he wants. And if he can get the best kids to come, so be it. They're gonna leave faster than the amount of time it took to recruit them. And I think Donald has a point that if Bo Ryan could have Justice Winslow or could have Jaleel Okafor, he would take them. I think any coach would take them. I think that those guys are tremendous players, and even if they only stay for 1 year, I don't know the details of all their academic situations or what they're planning to do next year. I think there's a pretty valid assumption that a few of Duke's players are going to leave. But if they're committed to the program while they're there, fine, whatever. If they want to leave, that's their prerogative. They have the right to go make money. They will go make lots and lots of money. They're going to make millions of dollars next year playing in the NBA. And fine, Bo Ryan, if you don't appreciate that. I think it's great that he has players like Kaminsky and Decker who have grown in their program, and obviously those guys are heroes to their team. And I don't think that a player could be more beloved by his fan base than Frank Kaminsky is by the Wisconsin fans, and justifiably so. But Duke's had players like that. Duke had Kyle Singler, and Duke had Nolan Smith and John Shire and Brian Zubek and Lance Thomas. The whole 2010 team was that kind of team. I'm a little surprised that he went there, knowing especially that he had been a Hall of Fame finalist, coming into the Final Four. I'm not sure when they actually did the final voting for that, but he's on a big stage here, and he knows that his words mean something, and I think he's generally thought of as a intelligent coach who knows what he's saying and knows how to say the right things. And yeah, it kind of takes me back. I didn't actually get to watch the press conference because I was out doing all the team celebration things, but it was a little weird. Maybe I have to go watch it, and maybe it comes off worse than I'm hearing it, because I don't know. He's going to regret those comments later. He would take those one and done players if he could have them, And maybe he should be recruiting him. And whatever, Bo Ryan.
Okay. Yeah. Enough of Bo Ryan.
Fine.
Do we want to do player of the game? Is there? I mean, we're going to mention one of two names, right?
Yeah. I'm okay with doing player of the game.
All right, then Sam, why don't you start? Give me your player of the game.
So I'm going with Grayson Allen, but I wanted to point out that there was a stretch in the second half where we were playing the four freshmen and Matt Jones, and I thought, man, this is a weird lineup. I don't think we've seen it very much, and I wonder who in this lineup, because it came at a point, and I don't remember exactly how much time was left, but the four freshmen and Matt Jones came at a time where I thought something has to happen right here. So which of these guys is going to do it? And Grayson Allen was probably the fourth player I would have picked among who's going to make something happen here, and he did. He had the steal. He had a couple of big shots. He stepped up in a way that I did not expect him to be able to do. We talked about Tyus Jones and how tough he is down the stretch, but we've seen that from him this year. And granted, we haven't seen it from him in a national championship game, but we haven't seen Grayson Allen take over a game the way that he did last night against an enormous, talented team like Wisconsin, a team that was one of the very best teams in the country. I don't think that Duke necessarily proved that they're the best team. I think that Duke, Kentucky, Wisconsin, Arizona, probably Virginia when they're fully healthy, those guys are the top tier. I think that's what my friends and I were talking about last night. Those teams were the best teams, and you could make a case that any of them was the single best team in the country. Grayson Allen went up against one of those very top tier teams and just dominated them for a couple minutes. And I think that was the key to the victory. And I think it's Grayson Allen. I am so excited to see how he grows and matures in the program next year and in the years to come.
Donald, your turn. Who's your player of the game?
So I'm hoping that Jason will go with the other rightful candidate. So I'm going to also go with Grayson Allen. I thought that he was the aggressor for most of the game. He was the one that took it to Wisconsin from start to finish. And, even in the first half, even when some of his shots weren't going down, he was still practicing the shooter's mentality of I'll get him the next time. The next shot's going in. The next layup is going in. And that was what we needed. Whenever our team seemed to get a little rattled, and I think both teams were kind of rattled in the first 8 minutes of the game, he was the one that was calm and was cool and was just attacking the Wisconsin defense with no fear. I've said it about him several times. The kid showed no fear last night. He showed no fear over the last couple months of the season. And this is what you live for. And he was the kind of forgotten freshman for most of the year, at least nationally. No one was talking about Grayson Allen. Amongst Duke circles, most people weren't really talking about him. They were hoping that he would kind of, be ready for next year. And next year started last night. It was great. And he was the real difference in us saying that we are a 5-time national champion this morning. So my player of the game, with all due respect to everyone else on the team, is Grayson Allen.
Well, I know, Donald, you want me to pick Tyus Jones so that we have some degree of recognizing the other great player in the game. But sorry, I'm also going with Grayson Allen.
And tried to hedge my bet.
Yeah, sorry. And now after you guys have waxed poetic on him for a couple minutes, I'm going to try and see if I have something additional I can say. I'll say this. I was taking some notes in the first half before I completely forgot to continue taking notes because I was so wrapped up in the game. And one of my earliest notes was for me to say, I love how fearless Grayson is. Now, this was from the first half. It's just from before he exploded for 8 points in 71 seconds and turned the game around. In the first half, I was already noting that Grayson was playing with fearlessness. And I had a friend send me an email and say that Grayson's nickname should be No Fear, because that's what he does. I had another friend send a note and say that in the second half, the entire planet knew that Grayson Allen was going to get the ball and drive to his right. And Wisconsin knew that too, and Wisconsin couldn't stop it. And that's the definition of greatness. When you can say, hey, I'm about to do this, and you do that, and they can't stop that, that's greatness. And that's what Grayson Allen was last night. He was fabulous. By the way, quick shout out to the bench. We got 51 minutes from our bench last night. Grayson and Emil Jefferson each played 21. Marshall played 9 fairly good minutes. How surprising was 51 minutes from our bench last night? And by the way, my wife at one point in the second half asked me if Grayson Allen would be turning pro. And I howled in laughter and said, thank God, no. What's the over-under, guys, on how many points per game Grayson Allen will average next year? I think he's going to be at least a 16-point per game scorer. Am I right?
Oh, I said I'll take 16 points a game like last night every day.
There you go.
If he's playing on a more balanced team, it's probably more like 10 or 11. But with so much of the offense leaving, because it's not just Okafor and Jones, but it's also Quinn Cook and his shooting. Allen's gonna have. I mean, if Allen can play like he did last night, he's gonna have the ball in his hand a lot, and he might be scoring 15 or 16 again. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all.
Okay, so let's do some parting thoughts.
I should have added on Grayson Allen. The Duke Basketball Report Forum is a place that is notorious for pumping up every single player who's coming through the program, especially the young guys. You know, at the beginning of their careers, every new recruit is a future All-American and is a future retired jersey. And we saw a lot of chatter, I think, last year, you know, when Grayson Allen was still in high school, that Grayson Allen's going to be the next great hated Duke player, and people are gonna treat him the way they treated JJ Redick. And I thought, are they really? Like, he's coming in as the fourth best recruit in a recruiting class. Granted, a really good recruiting class, but you know, I think JJ Redick had a much better reputation coming out of high school. If Grayson Allen plays like he did last night, then the crazy DBR optimists are going to be totally right about him, and that's awesome and very unexpected, at least from my perspective.
So, do we have parting thoughts? Anything we want to say in parting? I'll actually let me lead it off. I got a wonderful email from a friend of mine, George Harris, who points out how mentally tough this team was. And he pointed to a few different games. At St. John's on December 25th, we trailed by 10 with under 9 minutes to go. And according to Ken Pomeroy's brilliant computers, we had only about a 10% chance of winning the game at that point. We ended up winning it by 9. At Virginia, on January 31st, we trailed by 10 points with 9 minutes to go. We trailed by 5 points with 3 minutes to go. When we trailed by 5 with 3 minutes to go, our win percentage was under 5%. Just a 5% chance to win. We won that game by 6. Against UNC on February 18th, we trailed by 10 points with 4 minutes to go. We trailed by 9 points with 3 minutes to go. Our win percentage was about 3%. We won that game in overtime. At UNC on March 7th, we trailed by 7 points with 14 minutes to go. Our win percentage was about 15%. We won that game by 7. So last night, when we were down by 9 points with 13 minutes to go, my friend George Harris said, we had them right where we wanted them. Toughness. That's the hallmark of this team. Donald, what's your parting thought?
So I take back to what we were kind of thinking when we lost to Notre Dame. We lost Sheed off the team. Shimmy had just transferred, and we're down to 8 scholarship players and 2 walk-ons. And, you know, we were kind of saying, what's going to happen on this game on Saturday against UVA? We were never really, I mean, in our minds, we're thinking about how this affects the rest of the season, but we weren't thinking about this season. We were thinking about the next game. And I think this run we had, we only lost once the rest of the season after that happened. And that was to Notre Dame in the ACC tournament. The poise that all of these guys showed on the team, from the coaching staff all the way down to the managers, is nothing short of extraordinary. When we look back at the national championships that we've had, this is probably the most surprising, in that no team that has 8 scholarship players, 4 of them being freshmen, should have this good a team, or have a team like that win a national championship. And we just did that. I really don't know how we did it. I mean, except for that these guys were poised, they locked in, they focused, and took everything a game at a time. And that's what you have to do when you are facing teams that have 16, 17 players that they can throw at you. And we had 8. They were trying, each game, they were trying to get us into foul trouble. They were trying to get our big players out of the game. because they knew that we only had 3 people on our bench. And they overcame all of that and won a national championship. And now their legacy in Duke history is sealed. And that makes me so happy for everyone associated with the program. This is probably, I was thinking back to 2001, which was my freshman year, how special that was, how sweet it was. This might be the sweetest national championship that I've witnessed for any team. This was absolutely great, and I'm so happy and thrilled for everybody. Sorry, I was up until 4 a.m. last night, just watching this team again. I'm gonna miss this team. It was great to watch them.
I think I'll save the waxing poetic on this team for maybe our podcast next week. But I did want to point out that everybody should go to the Final Four at some point if you get a chance to, and if Duke is back in it. It is a ton of fun to be there. There's such a great atmosphere. The people are all excited to be there. There's an enormous crowd. I mean, there were like 72,000 people at the game last night with the announced attendance. They have the fan fest and all kinds of stuff going on. It's just so much fun as a college basketball fan. I'm very glad that I went. I'm glad that I was there with my buddies who I spend a lot of time talking about Duke basketball with throughout the season, but who live all over the country. So it was cool to meet up with them and go to these games. It's a lot of fun. And I wanted to give a special shout out to DBR forum reader and commenter Wheezy, who gave me a pom-pom on a stick last night at the game, and which I then realized about 3 minutes after she gave it to me. I wasn't sitting with her. She was like sitting in another part of the stadium. She gave it to me, and I was like, I don't really know what to do with this pom-pom, but I gave it to, I think, maybe about a 6-year-old, or not even 6, maybe 4 or 5-year-old Duke fan. And I said, here, if this is for you, make sure you wave it and scream really loud and do your best with it. And I guess he did, because we won the game. So that was my takeaway from being at the national championship game last night.
I completely agree with you. You need to go to a national championship game, especially if your team's going to win at least one time in your life. I was in Minneapolis for the 1992 coronation of Leitner and Hurley, and our second national title. It was a ton of fun. And
the coronation of the Fab Five. Sorry.
No, not quite. Anyway, it's amazing attending a national championship game. It's a truly rare experience, and you're very, very fortunate, Sam. And I'm sure that little fan waving that pom pom, it was the breath of wind from waving that pom pom that pushed in Grayson Allen's shot that hit the bottom of the rim and rolled over back up to the top of the rim. That was what did it. It was that's how we won the game. Guys, I think we're all done with this championship edition of the Duke Basketball Report podcast. Sam Klein, Donald Wine, thanks so much for joining me. Again, my name is Jason Evans. We will let the Duke Marching Band carry us home. And don't worry, folks, even though the season is over, we will be right back here in the next few days for a final season wrap-up. And then following that, we will continue to bring you podcasts over the off season as we lament the fact that basketball is done for 2014-2015 season at Duke, but it ended the best way it possibly could. Go Devils. Congratulations, Duke. Another national